Welcome back, explorers. I'm David, that's Wesley, and this is the Trailcast.
The weekly show that gets so far off track, you'll have to stick around to see just where we end up.
We didn't ask for it, but yet we got it anyway.
That's right. Today we're talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
So Wesley, I went to go see Indiana Jones 5 last night.
How'd that go?
Well, I mean, about like I had expected.
Okay. So,
It wasn't
not
good.
a great experience for you. It wasn't good. Well, I went and saw it, whatever today is, saw it earlier than you. I saw it Saturday, and I would have to disagree. I'm not gonna go out and say it's the best Indiana Jones movie out there, but I still think it has. I think it has good qualities to it. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
It's the
What-
best thing
what is it?
Lucasfilm was done since Rogue One.
I don't know about
You
that.
don't have to agree with it. We don't have to agree on this topic. That's okay.
I don't know about that.
We don't have to.
But
agree.
well, I'll tell you this: the one of the biggest. Well, okay, there are several problems that I had with it. We'll get to those moving on as we go through the plot of the movie. But one of the biggest things I'll say right off the bat is I really, really did not like Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character in this movie.
And I think that's fair.
She was not like they want you to like they wrote it so like to make her like a character you're supposed to be rooting for, but they didn't write her as a character you want to root for.
She drugged the movie down. I would definitely agree with that. But I also did see what they were going for, because personally, like, she has an arc in the movie, and I think at the end of it, she's a much more likable character than she was not. She was almost unbearable in the first part of the movie. By the end of the movie, she's not as bad. And more of it has to do with the fact that she ends up working with Indy better. But there are other things that we can get to as we dissect the movie, that I think that she becomes a likable character more so. But yeah, no, she's probably my biggest knock on the movie is her character, because if you have a main character that is unbearable or just annoying or what have you, it does make it hard to watch. But I don't think that her character brings this movie down so far that it's just like that bad of a movie. And I think this is obviously going to be an opinion to an opinion thing. People are see it differently. From what I've seen, like, most people, I don't think most people like this one, but I feel like it's a split audience. Like, I think some people are okay with it, and some people are like rioting over it. So, you know.
And I actually did have the
it is what it is.
I actually did have the Rotten Tomatoes score pulled up here because I was just kind of curious.
Uh-huh.
And I know it's like it just opened, so it's not going to have because we're recording this the Tuesday after opening weekend. So
yeah,
by the time this comes out, we'll have 2 full weekends to have. This will probably be different by the time this episode comes out. But as of right now, the critic score is 99% and the audience score is 88%. I feel like that's a little high, Just because I know the way the internet is, and I know the way these things go. Um, like, I mean,
Well,
my
I've
personal opinion aside, I feel like that's a little high, but
all I know about it, as far as like people talking about whether they liked it or not, when I looked up reviews about this movie, it was hard finding one that was positive in a
mm.
little bit. So
and so that's for me. I
YouTube
feel
has
like,
spoken as far as that goes.
and so that's for me. I feel like this is going to go down as time goes on, but and like I said, that opinion is coming strictly mostly from just being trying to be objective because I do have my like personally I think that's way too high, but objectively I think that's going to come down.
I honestly feel like 70 to 80% should be about where this movie is. But here's the thing that you're gonna have to think about when it comes to this movie. Indiana Jones is from 80s or earlier, whenever. He is not a modern character that most people know thing much about. Like he has had a movie. The most recent movie was what, '08 is when we found,
Yeah,
or is it
2008,
2010, somewhere in there. It
2008.
was when the last Indiana Jones movie came out, and before that, it had been like probably 15, 20 years. So who's going to see this movie? It's probably a bunch of people 30 or 40 up, you know? Like kids nowadays aren't going to be looking at this a whole lot. Probably most people who do scores on Rotten Tomatoes aren't going to be doing this a whole lot. So, and I don't know. It's one of those things where the audience, I don't know if the audience fits where their statistics are going to be coming in, you know? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, you know, obviously people are going to have their opinions. It's going to be seen as bad. It's going to be seen as good by some people. It is what it is, you know? And one thing's for sure, it's an Indiana Jones movie. So it's on the title. But
I
anyways,
guess.
moving on to the rest of the movie.
Also, one thing I want to point out too is so of course the main villain in this movie is played by Mads Mikkelsen, and I was thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a movie where Mads Mikkelsen has played a main character and not been the villain.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he played. You mentioned Rogue One a minute ago. He played Jalen Erso in Rogue One.
Yeah.
But that's not really a main character.
Yeah, more like important plot thread, but not necessarily main character. Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing: if you do well at the villain role, you're just a villain. I mean, you got to play the villain roles, you know.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into.
And he does do a good job. I mean, like the movie or not, he does do a good job in the. I mean, he's a good actor. He's a good villain. He does a good job in this movie.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and dive into Act 1. Or not. Well, I guess the prologue to the movie.
Yeah. The first scene set in the past.
Yeah. So
back in what year did we decide on? Sometime in the 40s. It's near the end of World War II.
I would say probably 43, just because it's towards the end of the war, or at least the war in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the main part of this sequence takes place on a train. It starts out with Indy breaking into this German, like, is it some kind of like castle or something basically some kind of German compound where they have a bunch of artifacts.
They're transporting a bunch of the artifacts, I guess, that the Fuhrer has or wants or something. So it might just be a castle that has a bunch of artifacts that they took over and are now plundering. So, but in the process, an air raid comes in, which kind of causes a distraction enough for Indy to be able to escape.
And
before we do far into all this, let's talk about the deep fake though that was done on this. That is the biggest thing from this scene.
Yes.
is the
So
deep fake. I mean, that's the
yeah,
thing
I
everyone's
will
gonna be
say
talking about.
I will say I was actually really impressed with the CGI in that. The Now I will say the voice did kind of take me out of it a little bit because
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was actually Harrison Ford playing that. I mean, obviously the voice was, but I'm pretty sure it was also like actually Harrison Ford, like that
Yeah,
they deep fake the face over. But
the stand-in. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that
um,
was one thing that Sarah mentioned is that the voice was a big thing with it, and like she mentioned that his hands looked a little old. Um,
yeah.
but all in all, like there were times that you could tell it wasn't real, but there were also a lot of times that it looked amazing. Like their deep fake
No, I will
technology is
say
getting better and better.
that's what I will say. Visually, with the face, especially, it looked really good. And like after just
Hmm.
talking about the Flash and its horrible CGI, because let's be honest, that
Yeah.
CGI was very bad. This was
Yes.
I know it's not the same studio, but like I said, it's complete 180. Um,
Yeah. Well,
the
that's one
CGI
thing that
was very good.
That is one thing that Lucasfilm has done really well in all their movies that have been really bad. Um, is they do good CGI. I mean, you know,
Mm-hmm.
there's few bones to pick with their CGI, and I mean they've been pretty much a pioneer in this area of deepfakes
Because I
and
think
getting
the
that out there.
first
So,
because like the first movie that had uh like a CGI deepfake was Rogue One.
mhm.
That was the first big
Which
movie that I
looked
can think that
pretty
used it a
good.
lot. No, they did
It
an
looked
excellent
pretty
job with
good,
Tarkin. Yeah.
but this looks like a lot better than that even, you know. And
Yes,
so they've been
yes,
getting better with it.
yeah. This like you could have told me this was footage that filmed in the '80s that just wasn't used, and
Yeah,
I could have believed it. Yeah.
would have believed.
Um.
Would have could. Yeah, it was pretty impressive. Pretty impressive stuff.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, the whole point of this sequence was to introduce the main villain and to introduce the main
Introduce.
artifact in the Dial of Destiny in the which is
Well, it also introduces uh the relationship between the two main
oh
characters.
yes Basil Shaw, who is Helena's
Mhm.
father, which we'll get into
Yes.
later on. But yeah, um,
I'll be honest, I don't think I was listening. Well, I wasn't listening, so I didn't hear. But I think I interrupted you when you were starting to say what the artifact was. Which, if you want to
oh
go
yeah,
ahead
yeah.
and
So
disclose that information now.
Archimedes dial, which what did they call it? They had a name for it in the movie. I don't remember what it
Oh yeah, they had
was.
an actual name. I was about to say, I was like, it's called the
Um,
Battle of Destiny, duh. And I was like, well, that's actually not the movie name for it. So
yeah.
yeah,
But in the movie they called it Archimedes dial, and then they had another name that they called it. What was it?
okay.
Um, the Antikythera.
Antikythera.
I'm
Okay.
probably butchering that pronunciation, but we'll go with that. The Antikythera.
That
Um,
that sounds pretty well on point with what they said in the movie.
yeah. Um, so yeah, that's basically what the whole point of this movie is. Basically, it's a device that can predict fissures in time. Is what they explained. But
Yeah, so
they're gonna get into that later on in the movie. But we'll get to that.
they don't really do a great job of explaining time travel in this, but I also don't completely dislike how they go about doing it. You know?
Well, okay. I will say I would because I kind of just from the trailer guessed that it was about time travel. I was worried that the
Yeah.
device itself was going to generate the time travel, or like that
Mm.
was going to be the mechanism to which
I
they used to time travel.
yeah.
I didn't mind the fact that it just predicted a fissure, but the time travel was still very weird. But we'll get to that
It was a
later on.
little weird. I was gonna say it because the gist of it is that basically shows you a rift in time where you can travel through. It wasn't
Yeah.
exactly like it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, time travel, but at the same time, it wasn't. And you feel free to disagree with this. It's perfectly fine. But in my opinion, it wasn't as weird as most of Crystal Skull. Like I feel like this still was more on brand for Indiana Jones than the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was.
Well, okay. If you're talking about the what the movie was about, maybe, but one thing I will say for Crystal Skull, like comparing it to this movie, is
Mm-hmm.
Crystal Skull actually felt like Indiana in that movie felt like Indiana Jones from the original three. Not so much in this movie.
Well, yeah, but you gotta think about it like this: Indiana Jones isn't supposed to be the same as he is in the original three. Like, he's old, he's beaten, he's been a lot, and he's lost his son, he's lost his wife, who he had lost before, but gotten back together with.
Let's dive into that because as the movie, as Act One kind of unfolds after this prologue, we get a look at kind of where Indy is at this point. He's at a new college. He's thinking about retiring. He's kind of like it happens at the same time as the moon landing. So this movie takes place in 69, but yeah,
it's supposed to be
like,
Moon Day or whatever.
Yeah, so this is it opens on the day that the moon landing's on TV and all that stuff. There's a parade and all this stuff going on, but Indy's kind of like out of it all, and later on we do get a look into it, like so the way they kind of explain away Mutt not being in this movie is that he died in Vietnam. And then they explain that Marion had left because
issues with coping with the death.
Yeah, and
well, between that and Indy not exactly being the greatest at comforting her, she left. So
yeah, so Indy's kind of in a I realize this too. Like Disney really likes doing this to Harrison Ford. They did the same thing in The Force Awakens to him.
Yeah.
Like,
old beaten down man.
Lost his son, separated from his wife. They did the same thing. Like,
I say I didn't notice that, but that's true.
Like, they really like doing that to Harrison Ford. But anyway. Yeah, so at this point is when we're also introduced to Helena.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of dive into. Sorry, you go ahead. I've been talking for a while.
I was gonna say they meet up, and through a series of events, he doesn't recognize her, but she ends up telling him that she is the daughter of Shaw, Dr. Shaw, which is a character who was introduced in the prologue part of it. And he, they catch up for a little while, but then she starts talking to him about her interest in the dial. At this point in time, it's given off the vibe that she believes that they lost it in the river. That the train was going over when they were on the train in the first sequence, prologue part of it. So then he ends up taking her to the archive room or whatever at the university where he is keeping the tile, and shows it to her. That's when she tells him, or whispers or whatever, says it kind of under her breath. She's like, "Oh, you wouldn't destroy it," which clues him into the fact that maybe she wasn't as naive to it all as So then she steals it, runs off, and then I guess we should bounce over to the villain because that's important for what happens next.
Yeah, so it introduces the villain at that point, and what was his name? Dr. Voller.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like, so he's in the prologue, but he gets knocked off a train by like an overhang or a sign or something. So in all reality, he should be dead, but he's
He
not.
shouldn't have a head, and if he does have a head, he should have a huge scar, which were two things that I
But
thought
he doesn't.
immediately and didn't like. I was like, okay, that should have been done, but whatever. It is what it is. In all honesty, it is a minor thing because he's the main villain. Whatever. We'll move it on.
But yeah,
But
yeah. So,
but anyways, we do need to mention the fact that he helped the he was the head scientist that helped the U.S. land on the moon.
Yeah.
So he has a connection with the U.S. government, and the U.S. government wants to keep him happy. So there's an agent, FBI, CIA. Do you remember what she was with?
I'm pretty sure she was CIA. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she was CIA.
We're gonna just say CIA for the rest of this podcast, just for simplicity. If we're wrong, oh well.
Mm. Yeah.
Anyways,
Agent Mason. Oh yeah. Well, I see here CIA. Yeah. Well, okay. This is Wikipedia. So this is Wikipedia. So again, don't quote me on that. But I can blame it on CS. I can blame it on Wikipedia now. Wikipedia says
blame it on the CIA. Yeah, blame it on the CIA. Anyways, but yeah, she's here and no, David's blaming it on the CIA. You heard it here first. CIA. David, you're gonna get a knock on your door. Hello. Anyways, just don't mention anything about the nukes.
Oh yeah.
All right. So,
okay.
Anyways, but she's with Shaw because Shaw is interested in the dial. I'm not entirely sure if it might be that her father was really upset. Dr. Shaw was extremely obsessed with the dial. So maybe he might have a background, because there is one little plot hole there where it's like, why are they trying to find Helena, thinking that she has the dial, or that Harrison or that Indy has the dial? Like, why would they assume? But anyways, beside the point. They're spying on one of the two of them, and they take them. They follow him back to the archival room. And when Helena runs off, she ends up leaving Henry in the room with the CIA agent and two of Voller's henchmen. Which I see names here, but I can't read English, so.
But yeah,
Clabber and Pookie.
So basically, at this point, in the office there, that's kind of connected to the archive room there, Voller's thugs or mercenaries or whatever they are end up killing some of the faculty there at the university.
I think like a secretary, maybe a secretary and a professor, and because of this, Indy gets blamed for it.
Yeah, Indy gets blamed for it, and he has to flee the country. So, did we already mention that Helena stole the dial and then ran off? If not, there it is.
Helena stole the dial and ran off. And
so,
in the process of Henry being on the run, he runs to the cameo of Sala. He runs Saul.
Yeah.
Saul. Name Saul.
Yeah, which I am glad John Rhys Davies was in this movie, but I wish he had been more of a prominent role.
Yeah. But see, if he was a more of a prominent role, he probably would have died.
True. That's true.
Either in this or in real life, one of the two. So,
and we already saw Antonio Banderas die. So
yeah. Which one was he from? Because he was in one, wasn't he?
I was trying to remember. Hold up. Let me see here.
Let's say I couldn't remember which one he was in, but at the same time, it's been a while since I watched whatever the movie was, Raiders, not long before we had done the first podcast that we did on Indiana Jones, but I slept through about half of it. So, and I haven't seen the other two in a long time. So he looked like, I thought I remember him being one, but I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember any of that.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if he was a side character in one of the others too. I don't think he was.
Was it just a character that was like, oh, Indy has a friend because Indy travels a lot? Which,
yeah,
I mean, fine. I'm fine with. Like, it still makes sense. Like, it makes sense.
But being Antonio Banderas, I wouldn't be surprised if he was like played a small role in one of the others. But I don't remember that.
Yeah,
I might be remember.
Yeah, I'm about to say I'm looking through.
We might get
here. I don't see anything.
We might get like torn alive for not remembering this, but you know, you're eaten alive for not remembering this. But you know,
there's a lot of things. You don't remember it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he wasn't in, unless he was in Crystal Skull.
Have you looked up the other two movies or other three movies?
I'm looking at Antonio Banderas' IMDb page, and I don't see any Indiana Jones movies during the 80s.
Yeah, I was say I didn't see it on there, but I was gonna look up and see movies and see if I could find a cast list for it and see if he was in it. Because I mean, he's been in a lot. I would, assume so.
But anyway, his character dies late. His character dies later on in the movie.
Yeah, so we don't want that to happen to Sala.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, Sala helps Indy get out of the country, and he goes to Morocco because I don't remember. Did they explain how he knew that Helena went to Morocco?
I'm trying to think.
Or did he just guess?
You said Indy went to Morocco, right? Is what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason he went there was because the information Sala gave him. He said he got some some reports or whatever about her being in jail, and she got bailed out by a guy who owns a casino in Morocco.
That's right.
So that was it wasn't necessarily like, oh, this is definitely where she's going, but all the evidence led to that because there was even an auction, like a private auction that was supposed to be going on there, and so they kind of figured out, oh, she's probably going to take the dial to the private auction, so he went there to find her, assuming she'd be there.
That's right.
So
also, I don't think we mentioned yet that it's only half the dial.
Yeah, it's only half dial. Here's the thing. We're doing a spoiler version of this, so people should know all this stuff.
True,
come on, y'all. Know more stuff. Be better.
Yeah. Anyway, basically, there's a lot of chase scenes in this movie.
Yeah, I will say, as much as it really, there's not much normal action like punching and all that stuff. But about it, it does kind of make sense. Like, your main character, 80 years old. Harrison Ford is 80 years old. You can't really have too many punch scenes. And even with that, they do have a couple of scenes like that. But chasing's a little bit easier because it's so fast. It's easier to have stunt doubles, stuff like that. So, and it kind of fits with the movie too. Like it is a chase movie. Like it is. So.
Also, one thing I want to point. You said mention Harrison Ford, 80 years old. One thing I realized is this episode is going up on July 10th. Harrison Ford is going to be turning 81 on July 13th.
Well, I mean, then we need to wish him a happy early birthday.
Yeah, happy early birthday, Harrison Ford.
Who will never listen to this, hear this, or know anything about either one of us ever.
Yeah, but what is it with us and being accidentally on point with all these with scheduling these? Because the first Indiana Jones podcast we did was on June 12th, which is the anniversary of Raiders. And we didn't even know anything about that until we were recording that podcast. What is it with us and actually
I, I, I don't know. I wonder if people are going to believe that, though. You know, that's the
no,
real
like
thing.
I said, we have not planned. We did not plan these to be around any specific dates. I mean, this just because the movie just came out. That's the only reason we talked about the first weekend of or the first week of the month. We talked about a Star Wars, so that's why it's the second weekend. But I did not. Okay,
The first, because here's one thing you could think about. The movie might have come out at this point in time because of Harrison's birthday. I doubt that would be the reason, but it could be. But even that aside,
it came out 2 weeks before.
Oh wait, you're right. I forgot when we're posting this. Anyways, well, forget about what I was saying.
Anyway, so let's get back to the plot of the movie. So basically, there's an auction. The dial gets changes hands several times. Then Voller ends up getting it, and a chase scene ensues.
What doesn't make sense. What doesn't make sense is how Voller made it there, or why he was there.
Yeah,
they might explain it, but I don't remember there being an actual explanation for. Maybe he knew about the auction. He might have had, I mean, obviously. At this point in time, he is technically working with the CIA. Like, the CIA is helping him. So it's not, like, out of the realm of possibility that he would know where it's at with the intel that he probably could get his hands on. But I don't remember them blatantly saying a reason.
Yeah, so while they're still in Morocco, they go through a chase scene. There really isn't much, like, interesting story stuff going on here, so I'm just gonna skip through it a little bit. But anyway, Voller ends up escaping with it.
Yeah.
Basically.
And they end up with a burnout buggy.
Yes.
They have to use gum to save.
Yes, even though Harrison Ford is playing Indiana Jones, he's not MacGyver.
He MacGyver's his way out of it.
Yeah. But so anyway, so they end up realizing that there is another half, or the other half to this thing. If they get it first, and they can stop Voller from time traveling. So they go to where they go to where the first half of the thing was found, which is a sunken Roman ship in the Aegean Sea. And apparently the ship
to get there, they have to go to his friend, which is Antonio Banderas. Bandera. There we go. He wears a bandera. Anyways, his character is the friend that Indy knows, so they have to go to him, and he takes them out to the site. And apparently, he's some kind of like he's supposed to be like a really good scuba diver or whatever.
Well, he was supposed to be like he was supposed to be like a Spanish frogman, or basically Spanish Marine. And so he was a professional diver, pretty much. Anyway, so yeah, they basically the Roman ship had split in half. And one half had sunken deeper than the other half, and the original dial was found in the shallower half. So they dive down to the deeper half, find this tablet, which is basically a map to the other half.
But as they're coming back up after they find, I think it's in some kind of a chest. As they're going up for it, a boat comes up, and when in the movie, so the crew consists of 3 guys, including the captain, and so the one of the crew members goes down with Antonio Banderas and Helena and Indy, which I know what's his name? Ronaldo? Is that his name in the movie? Is that what I'm saying?
That's what it says on IMDb. Yeah.
Okay. So the 4 of them go down. But when there's 2 Teddy and the other crew member up top. As soon as I saw that the boat was off in the distance, I said, "How much do you want to bet when they come back up, that other crew member is going to be dead, but Teddy's going to be just fine?" Like it doesn't really
Yeah.
make sense. It's just a plot thing. Also, the other crew member died when they disconnected the air hose, but for the rest of them when they were going back up, they hit their like life vests or whatever, and they inflated and it took them to the surface. He could have easily done that, honestly. Like
Mm.
it
They were just side characters.
They
They're
were
not
side
important.
characters stood up, but you do have to think about the fact that like one, the guy on the boat, it didn't really make sense why one would die and the other one wouldn't. Maybe he put up a fight, maybe I don't know. But the guy under the water is a professional scuba diver. He should have a pretty calm head in tense situations because they kind of train for stuff like that, or they should. But anyway, that's a side point. It was just funny. Well,
Mhm.
not funny, but it was like you can kind of see it coming because of how that goes.
Anyway,
But
so
anyways,
yeah, so Doctor
Baller takes over the ship.
Waller takes over the ship with his thugs. Antonio Banderas gets killed. Um, Helena translates the tablet, but sends them to Alexandria when in all reality they need to go to Syracuse on the island of
Yeah,
Sicily.
Syracuse. I will say
Yeah.
this: I've heard different things about how okay, so Helena cracks the code for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was like, "Oh, I don't like that because it makes Indy look like he's not as smart." And it's like, well, no, you for whether you like the character or not, like that's fine. I don't care if you like her or not. I don't particularly care for her character throughout most of the movie, but it's like that's not necessarily what they're doing here. It's more a thing where it's like, yes, Indy can do it. He is more than capable of doing everything that Helena does in this movie. He doesn't do everything, and a lot of it comes down to a more moral aspect of it all. Like she
Mm.
does that for money. She does it to get money out of it, you know? Um
Which I will say, like, and here's one thing that I do get kind of frustrated with um some people who like even who might have the same opinion like that this movie wasn't good is that they will try to point at things like that, which in all reality don't really make sense. But
yeah.
there are like I said, I don't really like that character, and there are valid criticisms you can make for or against that character.
Yeah.
But stuff like that
Yeah.
is just like you're not like if you make arguments like that, you're not you know it just doesn't work
Yeah.
because you like I said, there are valid criticisms you can make against that character, but that's not one of them.
When you're grabbing at things that are like you're just grabbing at air, it's like, well, you have things you can say, but you're not making the right accusations or criticisms or whatever. But that is beside the point. They do She does do things in this movie, but I mean, I thought the movie was good, and I didn't particularly care for her character either. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, like
Yeah.
it's not until pretty much the end of the movie that I'm like, okay, I can accept this character. Like, where was she the whole movie? She's tolerable. All right, you know what? I'm done trying.
Well, and it's something like I said earlier, like this character, like I kind of see what they were trying to go for, like kind of the like she's not a good guy, but the movie is written in with like you liking this character despite that in mind, even though they didn't write
Mhm.
her to be a likable character.
Yeah,
I feel like if they'd had made her like actually charming or have some redeeming quality, like likable, even though they're she's not really a good person. I feel like that would have worked better. But she's not only is she not a morally good person, she's also not a likable character.
yeah.
You don't
Well, it's because
you
she's
don't you don't want to root for her.
yeah. Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that you are rooting for Indiana, and they're in they're the two main characters of this movie, but they're in conflict for most of it. It's not until
Mm-hmm.
they get to Sicily that they do end up start working together better, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's that. I mean, okay, I did hear this one comment about it, and I will agree with this. This movie was too long,
Yeah.
and that's probably about an hour and a half into the movie that they actually start working better together. Um, and that's there's still at least 30, 40 minutes left in the movie. Like it, I don't know what the runtime on it was. Let's see, I can look now, but
It's an hour or 2 hours and 24 minutes.
I was about to say no way, it's an hour.
Yeah, 2 hours and
Yeah.
24 minutes.
So
I saw that
if this
somewhere.
was a
But I
2 hour
see that.
movie, if it was a 2 hour movie, it probably been fine. But that extra 30 minutes really drug on. Like it made it.
No, two hours
I
and
wasn't
34 minutes.
necessarily. Yeah, it's
I
at
was
the
10
top
minutes
there
off.
of the
Yeah.
IMBD. I thought you were reading it, but anyways,
No, well, I had seen it. I just
it
remembered that's what it was. But yeah, or I misremembered. But yeah.
personally, I don't like. I wasn't like disengaged. Like I was interested enough throughout the most of the movie, but it was one of those things where I was like, "Dang, this is a long movie." Like it was a long movie. So,
Mm.
but yeah, they don't start working better together until not even halfway. It's almost near the end of the movie, and that's when she starts to be a little bit more of a likable character. Just starts to be.
Yeah. Okay. And then again, we got into kind of another point where it's like a lot of screen time with not really a whole lot of story progression. So
Yeah.
essentially, what happens when they get to Sicily is Voller and his men follow them. They end up finding the tomb of Archimedes, and because the other half of the dial had been buried with Archimedes, so they end up finding the tomb of Archimedes, finding the other half of the dial. Of course, Voller's on their tail the entire time, catches up with them.
Well, he also has Teddy, which is why they're able to find all this.
Yeah. They kidnapped Teddy when they were still in Syracuse.
Which I will say, you made the comment about how like there's a lot of stuff happening with very little or no screen or no story progression. It there is a lot of stuff that happens, and like there is very little story progression, but there are little things like obviously Teddy gets kidnapped. They make their way to the ear of Athena, which I think is where the tomb's supposed to be. There's little things here and there, but it does take it basically takes a short story and tells it in a long form. Like they could have done better with that. Yeah. But it was it is what it is.
Basically the whole point of this whole like section of the movie is they find the other half of the dial and Voller steals it too.
Yeah. When you can sum it up like that, you don't need to spend 30 minutes or more telling it. But that really is the gist. After they leave here, well, we do have to mention this. No, before I get to that, because this is later down the road. When they went into the room with the statue of Athena in the cave, why was Helena the only one coughing and choking on the whatever the gas was in there? Like Indy was just fine. It
was methane, and I guess Indy's immune to it.
Yeah, I found that funny. I was like, she's over here choking, and he's over here like, oh, we need to get out. Oh, wait, no, there's a puzzle here to figure out. Like,
well, okay, that's another thing. Like,
okay,
that's another thing. Kind of on a side note, I feel like Harrison Ford like wasn't really trying hard in this movie.
Yeah, I think the best part for him as an actor in this was when he was talking about losing his son on the boat.
Yeah.
But like that's probably the most you see out of him acting wise in this. Like honestly, like Indiana Jones or Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. Like I think maybe when he probably acted a lot more in the first three movies, but in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and in this one here, if you see Harrison Ford outside of like any kind of movie, he probably acts exactly the same as he does in both of those. Like,
but
he's an old man. Too, he doesn't care anymore.
But also, in all reality, too, like Harrison Ford gets paid a buttload of money for every movie he's been in the past like 10, 15 years because he's such a big name. He gets paid so much money.
Yeah.
he does, but he can really just all he has to do is just show up, and he'll still get paid a bunch
Yeah.
of money. So I feel like he doesn't really necessarily care as much. Um, but
But you would think because of the attachment that he has to the Indiana character, like he loves Indiana Jones.
yeah,
It's his favorite character he plays. You'd think he probably still put a little bit of effort into it because he doesn't want to see that character, you know, put down or in a bad light, seen in a bad light, you know.
yeah, but
But
I mean,
I will say
yeah,
what probably ended up happening was they filmed it in two different rooms. So she was the only one that had the gas in the room, you know. So they're just choking her, and then he didn't have to deal with that. So, yeah, that's my thought.
yeah. Well, you think that scene was filmed during quarantine?
Well, whether it's filmed during quarantine or not, Harrison Ford is just too busy. You know, he can't be bothered to film scenes with other actors. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
So,
Makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So they just tried to poison her,
Also, I
and
do kind of like the
they
line of
couldn't do that.
I do kind of like the line of like when I forget exactly what he said, but when Helena's trying to open the door and he's just like stop. He's basically just says like stop trying that. It obviously didn't work for them. The skeletons that are like piled right there by the door.
Yeah, yeah. That I mean, it. Here's the thing, and you can definitely disagree with this, but because of the fact that I see Indiana Jones as a trilogy, I set the first three movies off to the side. So this movie is getting compared to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull hard. Like in my mind, it gets compared to that, and that's it. You know, I don't really go back to any of the other movies because it's a completely different time. But this scene here, the end scene where they're finding the treasure or finding whatever, getting to the climax of the movie. This felt way more Indiana Jones than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did at any point in the movie. Like, and I am perfectly okay with anyone who disagrees with me on that because this is all personal opinions. And by my opinion, like I felt like this movie as a whole, but specifically this part of it, felt way more like Indiana Jones than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did. It's not, I'm not going to go and compare all this to Raiders or Temple of Doom or Last Crusade because that's not.
I will say
it shouldn't be compared to that.
I will say this part that we're kind of like talking about right now, when they find Archimedes' tomb,
mm-hmm.
I will agree with that. It is more Indiana Jones than the rest of it, but if they wanted it to stay that way, should have been the climax of the movie. Yeah. Then we get a whole other. I think it's about another hour after this.
It is a long.
It might be about 45 minutes.
We did just mention how long the movie is. It is really long.
But yeah, so we get about another hour. Like this is like half like I guess near the end of Act 2, but we haven't even gotten to Act 3 yet.
Yeah. What probably should have happened if probably a better storyline, like, okay, here's the thing. I did not hate the ending of this movie. You might say you hated it. Other people might say they loved it. I'm more or less indifferent about it. Like, it is what it is, and I can accept it. Okay? But what probably they should have done is gone about the business of them going to the plane, which is where they go after this. And in that hangar yard should have been a fight where they basically beat the bad guys. Like they kill the main guy and whatever happens. Like that should have been the climax there, and that should have been the end of the movie.
Yeah. So.
But
yeah.
That being said.
So yeah, this is the
point
point
where
another
2 hours. Despite it being another 2 hours, I don't specifically hate the ending of it. Like it is what it is.
Okay, so well, since we're already pretty much here, let's go ahead and just talk about the ending here. So, they
find a rift in time.
Well, so first off, the Voller captures Indy gets shot, which he's bleeding out during this whole sequence, and no one
I thought he got,
they don't reference it
nothing
till
happens, yeah.
later on. Anyway, but
I also thought he got shot in the heart. I thought he was dead. Like when he got shot, it looked so close to his heart. I was like, no, he's dead. They killed him.
But
they
like
killed Indiana Jones.
They went so long without getting him, him getting treatment. He should have bled out. Anyway, that's beside the point. But so anyway, they capture Indy. Helena goes to try to save him. Sneaks onto the plane. They find the rift in time. They end up in what is it, like 200 BC?
2,000 years is what they were referencing. They said it's back in Archimedes' time.
Well, it says, but it's during the Punic Wars. So about 200 BC. In Syracuse, they end up 2,000 years in the past. But that was the most abrupt ending too. Like, okay, so Indy wants to stay in the past, and then Helena knocks him out, and then the movie's over. Pretty much.
Yeah, more or less.
Like, that is the most abrupt ending to a movie. Like it's just like they couldn't figure out a way to de-escalate the action, so they just like, okay, let's just bring it up to a climax and then just have it just stop, and then just have a few scenes at the end.
Let me play devil's advocate for the movie here, for it. So, why were they going to the past? Well, they were going to the past because Voller wanted to go back in time to like 1939 or whenever. He wanted to go back in the past, kill the Fuhrer, kill Hitler, and take over because he was like, I've analyzed everything that went wrong. I can do it better. So he wanted to do that so that the Nazis could rule. Well, in the process, they figure out that they actually probably aren't going to go back to that time, but it's like instead of it being technically time travel, it's like they go through a rift, but it only takes you to one point in time. So this is like a time loop. Like Indiana Jones was always going to come to this point in time. They were all going to. So that happens, and Indy gets dragged along in this process. So does Helena. So does Teddy, who's flying in another plane, because he mastered flying with bananas. So now he can do the real thing. That's beside the point. Anyways, so they get in the back and get to that point in time. Well, there's a war going on at this point. When they flash back into the past, there's a war going on. So they're a dragon in the sky, is how it's seen. So, shoot down the dragon. Plane gets shot down. All the villains die. Henry and Helena parachute off of the plane. Archimedes comes over. They're talking to him a little bit. And he gives them back the dial. Or I would assume he gives them back the dial. And then they're not supposed to stay here. So Helena knocks Henry out because he's not wanting to go back. Then they go back to the, back home. So, like, I don't necessarily know if I would agree with, like, it being that abrupt. Because, like, they're there because they were trying to stop Voller. Well, in the process, Voller dies. Yeah, there is a war going on, but they can't mess with the war because that's history, Like,
also,
they're not a part of that.
Why did Archimedes need them to come to the past? Because that was the whole thing of, like, he designed it so they could only come back to the past to get help from the future, but why did he need help?
Yeah, that didn't really
end up helping. They didn't really end up helping him.
No, they didn't do anything. And so that doesn't make sense. My thought with it is more like it probably would have been a better thing for them to have done it in a way where Archimedes just made this device because he was a smart man and he figured out, he figured out how to make this, and it just so happened to bring them back to that point in time. But yeah, they do just come and leave. Like, it doesn't really do much. So, you
Mm.
know, it is what it is. I wouldn't say that in my opinion, I wouldn't say it was really an abrupt ending. I mean, it wasn't. I wouldn't have done it, but I thought overall, it was okay. And after this, they go back to the future. Uh, Indiana Jones wakes up in his bed and finds Helena, who has been taking care of him for however long he's been out. And in the process, Marion makes her appearance, and they have a little scene after everyone leaves to go get ice cream. So they have their own scene where they're kind of catching up and getting better. And then it starts closing in on Indiana Jones's hat, and a little bit of I guess he's hanging up his hat now, you know. But then they had to spoil it by having him go out and grab it. So
Mm.
there's that. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
But okay, so they had the whole thing of like the Marion thing at the end, which I did like, but
Mhm.
they already did that in Crystal Skull. Like the
I
like
feel like
like
I feel like
can
what this
you
movie, the point of this movie, I think, was to sweep Crystal Skull under the rug. They got rid of Muggsy. They broke off what happened at the end of Crystal Skull with them getting back together. Like, I think they really were trying to sweep that under the rug. And if I look at it through the lens of not seeing Crystal Skull, I do think I like this movie a little bit more. But yeah, I will say, like, they do redo what they did.
do you mean Mutt? You said Muggsy.
Whatever his name is. I don't care. He's
Okay.
he's a forgettable character played by Shia LaBeouf in a bad movie, okay?
Hmm. Well, honestly, I think this movie made me like Crystal Skull a bit more.
Hmm.
But yeah.
So,
But yeah, since we're kind of coming up here, well, go ahead.
I was gonna say, since we're basically at the point where we're going to be giving our final thoughts on the movie, I thought it was good. The reason I say that this makes me maybe not necessarily like Crystal Skull less, but not really adding Crystal Skull into the equation makes me like this movie more, is because if you cut Crystal Skull out, think about how long it's been since Indiana Jones has been on screen. So it would have gone from since whenever Last Crusade came out to now. And so it has been a long time, and you back into and you have one last adventure with an old beaten down adventurer who used to be this action hero, and you come into, he's old, he's broken, he's been through a lot, his wife
Well,
left him, his sons died, all that stuff. And at the end of the movie, is he any less beaten or broken? Not necessarily, but he's happy because he at least gets his wife back, and he's done with it. He's done with it. He's done with the adventures. Like it's a conclusion. So I thought the story was well written. I thought it was told well. There were obviously things here and there that were, hey, this should have been tweaked before you release this, but nothing in my mind that was too big to really knock the movie down. I didn't care for Helena's character in the beginning, but I've watched a lot of movies and shows where there are characters that I don't like in it, but usually by the end of it, the character arc leads me to liking that character. I think her character arc led me to liking her character by the end of the movie. So she had a really good arc, in my opinion. And so I'm not going to go out here and say that, like I said, I'm not comparing this movie to the original 3 Indiana Jones movies. But if I compare it to Crystal Skull, I think this is a pretty big step up in the movie. But That's my opinion. So now we can hear your opinion.
Um, I mean, I've already been pretty vocal about where I stand on this. Like I
But
said,
see, now you got
I
to go
don't.
more in depth.
Yeah, I don't really think it was that good of a movie. I think, like I said, this movie made me like Crystal Skull a bit more. I kind of feel like it was. Well, I think everyone feels like this movie was unnecessary.
Yeah.
It just it didn't really have a point, and like even in the story that they wrote for this movie, it kind of seemed like it didn't even have a point. Um, it also a little bit feels like this story was the story of this movie was written by ChatGPT.
Maybe.
Even the title too, like the because I know you said you like this movie or more than I do, but even you could probably admit the title of this movie is stupid.
Well, I mean, they haven't been coming up with that. Like I said, we're not comparing these to the original. I'm not comparing this to the original three. They haven't had a good name since The Last Crusade.
Fair.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, that wasn't a good name. Dial of Destiny, not the greatest name in the world.
Mm. But yeah, I just didn't really like I said, when I walked out of the theater, I was just kind of feeling like I still didn't know what the point was. Like, and I'm not even just talking about like it's pointless to make another Indiana Jones movie. I'm just talking about like looking at it as a standalone movie. I felt like it was kind of pointless even then.
You're talking about like you don't understand like the point of the plot.
I mean, to a point, because it's just to me it was just kind of like a nothing of a movie.
I mean, I'm not gonna try and change your opinion, but I mean the point of the plot was Voller was wanting to change time so that the Nazis won, and Indiana got roped into all of it, and in the process stopped Voller from changing time. I mean, obviously, at the end, they weren't ever going to go back to 19 whenever during the war, but that wasn't necessarily known beforehand. But I mean, I say all that just to say that's my take on what the point plot wise of the movie was. But I'm not gonna sit here and try and change your opinion of it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's your opinion. And for anyone else who doesn't like it, hey, you don't like it. I don't like a lot of movies that are liked. So, it's all an opinion thing. But I will agree, like you said, I will agree. Despite liking this movie, there was no point in making another one. And that's the one thing that sucks nowadays about movies. Most movies are not just movies for the sake of movies. They're movies for the sake of, hey, you like this character, right? Let's make a movie about it so we can make a lot of money.
They're not making movies for the sake of the movie that they're making. They're making movies for the sake of movies that have already been made.
Yeah. Which is why I'm actually really hopeful for, and a lot of people have said that like Oppenheimer and Barbie. I think those is it Oppenheimer? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. The two movies that are coming out middle of July or whatever. Those two movies are like something that I think a lot of people are more so looking forward to because they're standalone movies. Like they're just movies for the sake of movies. Yes, Barbie is a famous IP, but she doesn't have like a rich history of there's all this, that, the other thing. Like this is the first live action that I know of Barbie movie, that's come out. Like it's new comparatively. And then you got Oppenheimer, which is a historical thing, right? If I'm thinking, if I remember what I'm. So it's like those aren't like franchise movies. So maybe if those movies do good and Hollywood sees that, they'll stop dipping into the same, can of worms. I don't know. that analogy was going nowhere from the start. But maybe they'll stop, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And it kind of looks like this movie's going to be shaping up to be a flop. So I'm talking about box office flop. Whether or not you think it was good or not.
No,
I'm gonna leave that aside for now.
The Flash will be a flop.
Yes. So I don't know. Maybe Hollywood will start to see the fact that they're not really nobody's really liking movies that have been coming with the exception of like Top Gun Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there has been a movie that has come out in the past couple of years that has actually been of cultural significance. Endgame was probably the last one, with the exception of the Top Gun Maverick, 2019,
2019, right? Yeah. So and the thing is also, I feel like because of the pandemic and all, I really feel like that has with that in the rise of streaming services and how fast these movies go to streaming. Like, if you don't watch a movie opening weekend, well, you can go watch it like a week or two, maybe 3 weeks later on streaming usually. Like, it doesn't people a lot of times don't care to go to movie theaters. Like, I honestly like seeing things in theaters because, hey, it's fun. It's a night out, this, that, the other thing. But it makes sense why people don't want to do that. It costs money. You have to get in the car. You have to go places. If you have a family, you have to get everyone in the car and go.
When you're already paying for Disney Plus, why can't you just wait?
Yeah. So it really just makes theaters are on the decline, and I think sooner or later it's not really going to matter. Box office, I don't think the box office is ever going to get the records that are in place. I don't know how long it's going to be before another movie breaks that. A lot of it has to do with what Hollywood's putting out, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that streaming is dominating the market.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the same going to a movie theater anymore. Like I said, for Guardians of the Galaxy, we went to the theater, it was empty. For Flash, that was probably the fullest I'd seen the theater, but it wasn't even jam packed. And then for this movie, we went and saw it. It was, decent, but it was still relatively empty. People just don't care to go see movies anymore.
And I will say, I went to go see it during a matinee, so generally those are going to be, have less people. But in that theater room, and it was also Monday, so matinee on a Monday afternoon, to a couple days after opening. Generally, that's not going to be a good time for a lot of people to go. But there were only 6 other people in that theater.
Yeah. That's so low. That's so low that if you need to go to the bathroom, you can just ask the guy playing the movie to pause it.
Literally, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think movies are on the decline, or movies going to the movies. But I will also say this, I honestly think too, movies in general might be on the decline. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that people don't have the attention span to sit and watch a movie. TV shows are so easy to watch because you can just watch them.
Well, studies have also shown that the fact of people's attention spans, especially with the rise of platforms like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels, that people's attention spans have just plummeted. Yeah, most people are used to, and I'll admit I'm guilty of this too. Scrolling through that kind of stuff and just not being able to pay attention to it for even a full minute. And it's just
it really does make things difficult when it comes to the realm of movie making. I mean, I I can say that I enjoy going to the movie theaters, and the past three movies we went and saw, Guardians, Flashpoint, and this Indiana Jones. I've enjoyed going, but it's also a thing of like, I don't know. I have been in a movie theater before and been more fully invested than I have been in this. Like, I remember when Rise of Skywalker came out. Not Rise of Skywalker. Uh, um, Force Awakens came out, and how I felt watching that movie. The first Star Wars movie I had ever seen in theaters. I think, yeah, first Star Wars movie I had ever seen in theaters, and like amazing. It was an amazing feeling. Same with like Endgame. It was amazing. But and a lot of the Marvel movies before Endgame and Infinity War. But like I haven't had that in a while. And I
Well,
think
like I said,
that feeling is just going to slowly start going away because of the movies that are coming out.
mm, and yeah, like I was like, The Force Awakens is probably the one movie that I saw the most in theaters. I think I saw that movie 3, if not 4 times in the theater.
Mm. Yeah.
Like I'm not normally one of these people who go and just watch a movie over and over again in the theater. I don't have
Yeah.
the what is it, like the Regal Plus or whatever for Regal Cinemas or whatever. I'm sure AMC has something similar to that, but I don't do any of those stuff. So I don't get free movie tickets or whatever. But so I don't normally go to see a movie multiple times in a theater, and so just for that fact. And also, I was in high school at the time when that movie came. No, I was in middle school when that movie came out, and I was using my own money to go see it. So that also
Didn't really have the funds. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still don't have the funds. I'm not in middle school anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Well, I guess I technically do, but I shouldn't be spending all my money on movie tickets. Anyways.
But yeah, you get the point. But yeah, that being said, like that movie was the last movie that I can remember that I like really liked watching it in the theater. And
yeah,
we'll get to that when we talk about the Star Wars sequels. But I didn't really like the other two have made me dislike that movie. But when that movie first came out, I did really like it.
My only, and I again, like you said, we were gonna get to this in a couple months when we talk about Force Awakens. I remember it eventually. Anyways, but like my only knock on that movie, never mind. I have a couple knocks on that movie, but like my biggest thing when I came out of the movie theater was it's pretty much a blatant ripoff of A New Hope, which is why it's a good movie. But it's a blatant ripoff of A New Hope.
At the time, I didn't care. But
well, yeah, it was like, hey, it was a great movie, but if you want me to be critical of it, here's where I'd be critical of it.
Yeah,
yeah. But like, and then Ray obviously figured out things way too fast. So those two things were things. Those two things are probably the only two things about that movie I don't like, even now. If that was it, that'd be great. But then Rise of Skywalker and what was the other one? Last Jedi.
Last Jedi, yeah.
Yeah, when those two came out, that really just tanked everything else.
And like they really should have. Lucasfilm with Star Wars should have stuck with the side movies because like Rogue One was amazing. Solo was good. It's very
it's underappreciated.
Underappreciated, yeah. I have my own knocks on Solo, but all in all, I do like Solo, and we need to talk about. I don't think we have that. I don't think we have that scheduled. We need to talk about that.
We only have the main line numbered Star Wars movies on there. We need to add in probably a couple of the TV shows, and definitely Solo and Rogue One.
Yeah, because like I do want to talk about Solo because I have ideas for how they could have made it better. Which obviously no one cares, but
as long as you know.
Yeah, but
speaking of,
I do think it was underappreciated.
this isn't completely off topic because we're still talking about Lucasfilm, and we're also talking about movies. So I have a question for you. So recently, I know like when Kenobi came out, there were talks about maybe Kenobi being a movie, and then they changed it to being a show. It might not have been actually that hey they were ever going to really do that, but I had heard something about there being a Kenobi movie, and then they switched it to where it's just straight to streaming TV show. Do you think that we're ever going to see another Star Wars movie? Or do you think that they're just going to stick? Because, I mean, honestly, from everything that I've heard, as far as the numbers go, they do pretty well for Star Wars TV shows. So do you think that they're ever going to actually make a movie? Or do you think they're just going to basically do straight to streaming TV shows from now on with Star Wars content?
Okay, so there is a... So Dave Filoni does have a movie.
Oh yeah, that thing that they're
scheduled.
making.
Heir to the Empire, which that's the name of the first. That's the name of the first. Thrawn book.
Thrawn. Yeah.
Thrawn.
Do you?
But I don't know if that's gonna be a theatrical release though.
That's what I was gonna say. Do you think it's gonna be straight to Disney Plus because they see, good stuff with that, or you think they're gonna? Because I mean, Disney hasn't made or Star Wars hasn't made a movie in a while. So do you think that this is their resurgent with saying, hey, we still are around kind of a deal? Like, I guess we'll have to wait and see if you don't know. But
I have mixed feelings about them trying to do more movies because, well, I already told you that they're trying to make another trilogy about Rey.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And like
which they want to make her like the old seasoned Jedi in this one, but like Daisy Ridley's like what 30?
Yeah, but I also don't remember. I don't remember what happened with that movie. I haven't heard anything about it in over almost a year, probably. But I heard that they were wanting to make another prequel, like an Old Republic era prequel.
Yeah, Old Republic. I think
about like the Sith King or whatever, and he's going to be played by Keanu.
I think that. Oh no, they need to save Keanu Reeves for Revan. He would do. He looks the part for Darth Revan. Anyways, didn't they change that to the new TV show that's coming out with Acolyte?
Maybe, I don't know.
Because that's supposed to be pre episode 1. It's like it takes place
because the rumors that I heard, like I said, I haven't heard anything about this recently, so I don't think this is still a thing. But I had heard that they were wanting to make a movie with Keanu Reeves and Gal Gadot.
They should, and they should do Revan and Bastila.
Actually,
I would be 100% on board with that. I never really thought about it, but you said Gal Gadot and Bastila. Honestly, that fits. I would be 100% on board with that.
I mean, I'm not sure if that's perfect casting, but I could see that.
That's pretty good casting, though. It's not completely off the wall.
I guess I can see that.
I mean, you could probably find someone who's better for the role. If you want if you want to name a big name, I would say she's probably one of the better choices.
The only problem I would have with a Old Republic movie or TV show adaptation is that video game adaptations are always like, okay, what like, I haven't watched it. I've heard the Last of Us TV show was pretty good.
Yeah.
But generally, just looking at the track record of video game adaptations to movie or TV is just,
I don't know. It's getting better. It's getting better because like Sonic's been pretty well received. Mario was done well. The Last of Us was well received. So it is getting better.
Okay, but here's the thing with Sonic and Mario. those movies are basically taking the characters and it's an original plot. A lot of video game adaptations try to take the plot from the video game, and it doesn't.
Well, you could also
really work.
You could also take the if you want to bring in like the thought of what was it, Uncharted. I don't think that movie did well. I liked it, but I don't know if it did well.
Okay, like I didn't think it was a bad movie either, but I never played the games.
I mean, that's fair.
So, you know.
Did you know that apparently, though, that talking about the Old Republic video games, apparently they're supposed to be doing a new one that's basically supposed to be the same. Oh, I think we talked about it on the podcast one time. Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
so it's a little bit of a. That's a little. That's a really bad thing to do. Like making a video game from a video game when you're basically remaking the video game,
like,
but not remastering it.
Okay, like if they wanted to, like, I don't know, it would have to be like very close to the original.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, see, the thing is
too about Knights of the Old Republic is that game is takes place so far in the past that they could they could do, make that canon and it wouldn't mess up any of the current canon.
Yeah. Well, so my thought with this too is like they can take Knights of the Old Republic, the video game, and bring it into the modern age with updated graphics, updated gameplay, all that stuff. They could do that. They won't, because when you make a game, you don't want a game that everyone already knows everything about. You want to you want a story that has twists in it that no one can see coming, or this thing that no one knows about, or that, So it's like, I understand it, but if you want to make the fans happy, just update it. Don't remake it with your own, because you're not going to make anyone you're probably not going to make anyone happy if you come in and you make your own storyline for this, Yeah. Like, it's got to be, like you said, it's got to be really close to the original.
Also, real quick, we have, like, completely gotten off topic about Indiana Jones, and I don't feel
I figured I figured we'd already jumped into a what's new with you.
I was about to say,
or not what's new with you. But
we probably
it seemed like we already jumped into a new segment.
Yeah, we probably should have jumped segments a while back.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I don't even know what this segment would be called, honestly. It's just kind of a...
honestly,
it's more of a...
It's just become like
a
conversation.
Rant.
Like, yeah.
Well, that's hey, that's the best part of our podcast, just us having a conversation,
Well, and that's kind of what our podcast is about. It's more so like, we're not...
It's supposed
We're not movie critics. We're not, like... We don't break stuff down professionally. So...
No.
We're really
you
just
listen to the rest of this,
right?
Yeah, we're not professional.
Yeah, we're really just having a conversation about a certain topic.
Yeah.
And
and I think also, like, it's one of those things where, like, we come at this with we're just average people watching this movie for really the entertainment, nostalgia, like different things like that. Like that's why we're watching movies, And like we're not coming at it from like the way a movie critic would come at it, dissecting every little detail of it. Like, and hopefully that's, for anyone listening, hopefully that's like something that y'all like about this, is that we're just, quote unquote, the average Joe over here watching a movie and telling you, hey, we liked it, or hey, we didn't like it, and here's why. Like, hey, we enjoyed ourselves, or hey, this thing was just so bad, so unbearable. Like, it's not a, the movie critics come at things with so much, too many other factors. And you can look up things on like Rotten Tomatoes, but Rotten Tomato has so many people compiled together that it's so hard to really know, because you could have someone who hates it and someone who loves it, and it averages out to be a 50. But we're just two people.
Eventually, we might kind of get to the point where we are like actually going into the movie with notebooks and stuff, actually like breaking stuff down.
I did this past time. I actually had a note at this time, but I put it up immediately because it was too dark.
But yeah, like generally, I go to see a movie. Like I do, like I probably wouldn't have seen this movie in the theater if we weren't talking about it on the podcast. Same with The Flash.
I wouldn't have seen any of the ones that we've gone and seen, just because I like going to movies, but like I also like not having to do things.
Mm.
I'm lazy. I really am.
Yeah, but it just But like I do like going to the movies, but like I said, I probably would have waited for these two movies to come out on streaming. I did want to see Guardians in the theater though. Also, that one I was really looking forward to.
Yeah,
but
I was indifferent about it. About seeing it in theaters. The biggest reason would be I'm kind of marveled out. Like that's the biggest reason that I would be like, I really didn't care to see it in theaters, is just because I'm done with Marvel. I'm so tired of it.
Mm-hmm. And in all honesty, I don't think we said this. We might have said this on the podcast before, but the next Marvel movie that's coming out is The Marvels. It's coming out in November.
Mm-hmm.
We're not, or you might go see it in the theater. I'm not planning to go see it in the theater. We're not planning on talking about it on the podcast.
We might plan on talking about it.
We might talk about it in a What's New With You at some point, but we're not talking about it on the podcast. I'm done with Marvel. It's just and I don't really care about Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel or
I don't want to have to go through and watch the TV shows to figure out what's going on. I don't have enough time for that.
Yeah. And also the fact that it's coming out the same month as Dune Part 2 and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Like,
no, it's not going to do well.
It's going to be like, okay, Dune Part 2 might not be as big of a people might not care as much, but with The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, that's going to way overshadow both of those movies.
I mean, I'm only going to see Dune because we're talking about it. I have to watch Dune Part 1 before I go see that.
We are talking about the first one.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna
before, but watch the first one. It is a good movie. Well, you probably want to watch it closer to the...
I was about to say I'm gonna have to watch it anyways because we're talking about the second one, and I don't want to go into a movie not knowing what's going on, but.
Yeah, I also want to read the book before we go into it too. The second one, at least.
It's not a thing. Oh, that's true. Might not be a bad idea to get that aspect of it either. But it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I have the things that I like. I have the things that I watch, and obviously I'm open to trying new things. But I've never seen Dune Part 1. I've never read the books.
Well,
there's no reason that personally I would go see Dune Part 2, but I know there's a bunch of people out there who will and who do.
Here's the reason I want to talk about Dune on the podcast. So we love, both of us love Star Wars. We grew up watching Star Wars, and Dune, the book, was a very culturally significant book as far as all sci-fi goes. If you watch the first movie, you will see the influence that George Lucas had when he created Star Wars. It's a very, it influenced pretty much all sci-fi, all modern day sci-fi.
Yeah,
it's as influential of a book as Lord of the Rings is.
Okay, I'm not saying I'm not going to like it. I'm just saying. I probably wouldn't go out of my way.
And so that's basically kind of why I want to watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying I'm going to like it. I'm just saying, hold up. So, David, I'm looking at the schedule here, and I don't know what you're trying to do to me, but I see that we're talking about Fallout, obviously in September, like we've mentioned. We're also talking about Fallen Order, like literally 4 weeks after.
Okay, that was your idea.
I don't care.
I wasn't gonna
one of those games.
I wasn't gonna do that to you, but that was your idea.
When did we make this? Because we might have made it before I moved. Maybe not. I don't know. Where was I at about then? Huh. Oh well. Anyways,
just finish Fallout 4. You'll be good. But we'll change that or push
I'd rather finish Fallen Order. Here's the thing. I understand that, like, and I know you love Fallout and all, and I'm sure I like the game too. But I'm way bigger in Star Wars than anything else.
Okay, well,
I'll do what I can do.
Pick one and we'll talk about it.
We can keep the schedule like it is. We can keep the schedule like it is. I will know what I'm talking about when we come into the video. I may just not have played it completely through. So, and I'll play through it. It's just I may not be done by the time we talk about it. So it is what it is. We'll be fine. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, no. I'm the one that's worrying. So, okay. I'm telling myself, don't worry. Anyways, it is getting to a point. I know we haven't skipped to a new segment, but I feel like we're past that point now. So, and it's about time for me to get going. So,
we've been recording for an hour. Well, also, I want to point out the fact that we didn't say this at the beginning, but this is the second time we've tried to record this podcast because my computer crashed halfway through the first time we did it, and we lost the recording. So,
how the turntable.
So yeah, that's why this episode was a little bit different.
Yeah,
maybe at the beginning.
So maybe at the beginning. About that.
At the beginning, it might have sounded a little bit rehearsed because it kind of was.
What? What? No.
So yeah, that's kind of if we sounded like acted a little bit different, sounded a little bit different in the beginning, that's probably why.
No.
No.
I know. I was saying it. I was like, that sounds exactly like what. Not exactly, but it sounded like I was doing.
I mean, you were saying it. You weren't doing the voice, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, if you want to,
all right,
call it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and head to an outro.
I mean, we like I said, we didn't go to another segment, but we've been pretty much talking like we're in another segment for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, we can head to an outro. Well, explorers, that's all the time we have for today.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Let us know what you thought in the comments down below. Or you can DM us on Instagram at DownTheRapShowYT.
And be sure to join us next week on the Trailcast.